Wait for it to go live here. Welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds and my reading of Quag Keep. I didn't really get to read this yesterday because my lungs are bad. Today, I'm a little bit better. Yesterday, I was just miserable. Today, though, I'm not too bad. So, without further ado, Chapter 4. I'm going to say Chapter 4, Part 1, because I'm realizing my lungs are not that great. So, 1. Yeah, we'll go to 39. And that leaves me with, a fair amount. 39's fine. So, we're going to do pages 35 to 39 today. I'm going to slow down a little bit because, I gotta... wonderful time. Parts of Greyhawk. This is called Chapter 4, Out of Greyhawk. Parts of Greyhawk never slept. The great markets of the merchants, edging both the Thieves' Quarter and the foreign section of the Free City, was bright with flares of torches and oil lanterns. People moved about the stalls, a steady din of voices arose. You could bargain here for a bundle of noisome rags, or for a jewel that once topped some forgotten king's crown estate. To Greyhawk came the adventurers of the world. The success brought things that they showed only behind drop curtains and certain booths. The prospective buyers could be human, elvish, dwarf, even orc, or other followers of chaos, as well as law. This is not only the foundation of D&D here, but a little bit of, if you're paying attention, Warhammer. Because nowadays, alignment is a thing, but at the same time, it's more how well you roleplay your character. It's more about that than it is about your alignment. In a free city, the balance stood straight line between dark and light. Narrow guards who threaded among the narrow lanes of the stalls, but quarrels were settled steel to steel, and in those they did not meddle, save to make sure the riot did not spring full-born from some scuffle. A wayfarer here depended upon his own weapons and wits, not only aid from those guardians of the city. Nail muttered to himself in such a low whisper that the words did not reach Milo through the subdued night roar of the market. Perhaps a swordsman would not have understood them, even if he had heard, for the berserkers' tongues of beasts were as open as the communication of humankind. They had gone but a short way into the garish, well-lighted lines of booths when Fangtu stopped, waiting for the other two, the swordsman and elf, to come up with him. The pseudo-dragon still lay, perhaps sleeping, curled about the massive lift of his throat. Under the ornately crowned helmet, his own face was flushed, and Milo could see the heat of anger still building in the owner. As yet, that emotion was under iron control. Could it burst? The dam, Nail might well embroil them in a quick battle, picking some quarrel with a stranger to vent his rage against the wizard. Do you smell it? The berserker's voice sounded thick, as if his words must fight hard to win through the strangling anger. Under the rim of his helmet, his eyes swept back and forth, not to touch upon either of his companions, but rather as if the crowd he sought to pick out someone his axe could bring down. There were smells in plenty here, mainly strong and more than half bordering on the foul. Ingrid's head was up, his nostrils expanded. The elf did not look about him. Rather, he tested the steaming air as if he might separate one odor from all the rest, identify it, lay it aside, and try again. To Milo, the slight warning came last. Perhaps because he had been too caught up in the constant flow of the scene about them. His sense for such was, of course, far less acute than that of either of his companions. But now he felt the same uneasiness that had ridden him in the inn, as well as along the way Wizard's guide had taken them. Somewhere in the crowd there existed interest in them. Chaos, Ingrid said, then qualified the identification with something else. It is clouded. Nell snorted. Is it of the dark? And it watches? She returned. While we walk under a chaos, I wish I had that damn wizard's throat between my two hands. To alter the shape of it. For good. It would be an act of impiety to foul my good skull splitter. He touched his axe where it hung on his belt. With his thin and treacherous blood. We are watched. Milo did not address that as a question to either elf or berserker. But will it come to more than watching? He surveyed the crowd, now not seeking the identity of the foe. For unless the enemy made it an overt move, he knew his skills could not detect the source of the danger, but rather noting those places where they might set their backs to a solid wall and face a rush should that materialize. Not here or yet. That was firm confidence in Ingrid's answer. Seconds later, the berserker grunted assent to that. The sooner that we ride out of this trap of a city, he added, the better. His hand rose as he touched with gentleness that seemed totally alien to the shaggy, brutal strength of the head of the pseudo-dragon. I do not like cities, and this one stinks. The elf already on the move, threading a way through the market crowd. Milo had an odd feeling that the three of them were nearly invisible. No hawker or merchant called them to look at their wares, though about them were sometimes even seized by the cloak edges and urged to view this or that marvel so cheaply offered no man could resist. He would have liked to linger but one display where the seller did not raise his head from his work as they pushed past. Here were dwarf-wrought arms, swords, throwing knives, daggers, a mace or two, one large enough even to fit into Nail's paw. The owner stood with his back to them, his forge fire glowing, so that the heat reached out to the hammer as his hammer rose and fell in a steady beat upon metal. If what Hista had said was true, and Milo felt it was, even if he had carried twice as heavy a purse as that which the bracelet had brought him, he could still not have spent a single piece at this booth. Those rules, dim and befogged, but still available in part to his memory, told Milo that he was already equipped with all that fate or sorcery of this world would allow him. This way, just a little past the temptation of the swordsmith's forge, Niall took a sharp turn to the right. After passing between two more rows of booths, those smaller, less imposing than those they had earlier viewed, they came upon the far side of the market itself, where there were no more stalls, rather rope-walled corrals and picket lines and some cages set in the final wall. Here the live merchandise was on view. Camels, kneeling and complaining, puffed out their foul breath at the passers-by. Beyond them was a small flock of orris, their mighty wings pinned tight up their feathered sides by well-secured restraints. Orris were hard to handle and must eternally be watched. They just might answer to an elf's commands, but for a man to attempt to ride these winged steeds was folly. They were hounds, their leashes made fast to stakes driven deeply into the ground. They raised snarling lips as Nail passed, but backed away and whimpered when he looked upon them. A berserker was not their meat for the hunt. Their instinct told them. Some felines squalled from a cage, but kept to the shadows so only a dusky outline of its crouched body could be seen. It was on to the horses that Milo now in the lead, moved eagerly. He began at once to study the mounts, which ranged from trained war steeds, its front hooves already shod with knife-edged battle-hook shoes, to ponies whose ungroomed hides are matted with mountain weeds, and whose rolled eyes and tried to strike out with their hind feet at anyone reckless enough to approach them unwarily. To tame such as those was a thankless task. Milo wanted the horse. It was seldom one those came into the open market for sale. Okay, let's do that. Resolutely, Milo turned from that prize. Began eyeing critically the animals on the middle line. Beyond the thick-legged, uncurried farm stock, some already worn out and useless, better put to out of their misery by a quick knock on the head. No, let them retire somewhere. But on the outer line, he spotted about a dozen ragged-maned dark grays, steep mounts. What chance had brought those here? They were raider-taken, probably, passed along across more civilized country because they had long-used stamina. They would be considered too light for battle, except for irregular cavalry, and too hard to control for farm service. Add to a careful choice from among them some of the better-tempered of the mountain ponies for packing. Ingrid had already moved forward toward the very horses Milo had marked down. Else at animal speech, she could be communicating with the steep mounts. Those? Nell asked. There was a dubious note in his voice, and Milo could understand why. In the first place, the berserker was used to the weight of a large man to carry him. Okay, I totally messed it up. Second, allied such as nails were, though their own particular magic, to the animal worlds, some horses would not accept a wearer near them at all, going mad at the scent which no human could pick up until change, but which seemed always present to animals. There was swift movement at Nail's throat. The pseudo dragon uncoiled with one light snap of their slender body. Spreading her nearly transparent wings, she took off before the berserker could reach her with a futile grab, to sail with lazy wing beats through the air toward the horses. She hovered over and between two of the largest. Suddenly, as she had taken to flight, she folded wings again, settling on the back of the mount to the right. The horse flung up its head at the loud whinny, jerked against the lead rope, and turned its head as far as it could, endeavoring to see what had alighted. Then the mount stood still. Its wild roll of eyes stopped. Hale laughed. Theta has chosen for me. Your servant, sirs. You would deal? Ingrid passed among the horses, slipping his hands lightly over the haunch down shoulder. As he snickered, Milo looked to the speaker. The man wore leather with an overt jacket, spotted black and white pony hide. A piece of his long, tousled hair flopped down on his forehead like a ragged forelock, and his teeth showed large and yellowish in a wide brim. Prime stock warriors, he waved a hand at the horse's lines. Steep stock, Milo answered neutrally. Trained to a single rider's call. True enough, the trader conceded without losing his grin. Brought them out of the Geop. There was a manhood raid over the border, but the young whelps who tried that had no luck. Forster Narn was doing a little raiding himself along the same general strip. He got some nomad skins to cover his storage chest, and I got the horses. Horston heard the old tales, too. about a steep man and his chosen horse. But you've an elf with you. Never heard tell any of them couldn't get into the skulls anything that flew, crawled, or trotted, always supposing they were both of the law. And the nomads, they give lip service to the Thera. Not since I heard tell has the main lady ever bowed head to chaos. How much? Milo came directly to the point. For how many warriors? An old trick of the mountain country, again a memory that was only a part of him, took over Milo's mind. There were 7 of them, a dozen of the steep mounts. For 2 reasons, it might be well to buy them all. First, it might possibly confuse that watcher of the watchers, whom they all sensed, about the eventual size of their own party. Though that, Milo decided, was probably a very faint hope. Second, once in the wilderness, the loss of a single horse might mean disaster unless they had a spare. For none of them, even the cleric, who wore no armor, could be mounted on a pack pony. For the lot, Ingrid, back from his inspection, returned quietly. Nail stood to one side. It would seem that they were willing to leave the bargaining to the swordsman. Well now, there was a slyness near open malice in the dealer's never-ending grin. These are season-stocked, good for open country traveling. Also, this is a town where there are many who come to outfit a company. Steep stock, repeated Milo. Are all your buyers then elves or dwarves, perhaps? The trader laughed. Now you think you got me by the short hairs, what with that one warrior? Maybe, just maybe. I say 10 gold for each. You won't find they're like this far east. Of course, if you plan to take them west, I'd go south of the steeps. Nomads are blood feuding and won't take kindly to see a kinsman's mount carrying a stranger. And with that, I will stop there, and we will finish. I might finish Chapter 4 in a private stream over on YouTube just to have it up for tomorrow. But today, that's it on Twitch. If you're watching this on YouTube, I will see you in the very near future with part 2 of Chapter 4. Again, I'm trying to